Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good Friday evening. It is the Earthmaster here on this end of the microphone on this Friday night, March 31st, 2023. We got April right around the corner tomorrow. It is about 10:12 p.m. here along the West Coast in California. The latest earthquake here shows, looks like a 2.5 into the area up here around, well, exactly where is that? Let's go ahead and see where that's at here. Stand by for a second. Up in northern Italy, 2.5, the latest earthquake coming in to the map as we speak. Also some activity further to the west here, it looks like. See exactly where that's at as well. Let's see what we got. Oh, there we go. A little bit of 1.9. Very small microquake out here around the France area. All right, so just a quick shout out, or can't really say a shout out, but a quick thoughts and prayers request for the folks out there around the Midwest today. They got hit pretty hard by some tornadoes today. We had 61 tornado reports through the Storm Prediction Center throughout, well, Arkansas, Tennessee, Iowa, Illinois, all seeing some damaging tornadoes out there today, and I've seen quite a bit of devastation floating around the social media pages out here today. So it was definitely forecasted. I just hope that the majority out there heeded those warnings. It's very important to heed those warnings when there's conditions that are ripe for severe weather out there. So we'll definitely send our thoughts and prayers out there to the folks that were affected from the tornado outbreak happening today. All right, Southern California rocking and rolling a little bit, right? The Elsinore fault system down here, well, just off the Elsinore fault system, seen a 4.2 near the Palomar Observatory. All right, what is the Palomar Observatory? Palomar, we're way off there. Palomar Observatory is actually a rather interesting place down there. It is a center of astronomical research owned and operated by, let's see here, what do we got here? We had a little bit of information there, but it kind of disappeared. Caltech. It's funny, right? Caltech is well, it's an area that it's an agency that monitors earthquakes. Kind of odd, right? What's going on down there? They did have a significant swarm down there last year. I remember covering that quite a bit. Seemed like months on end of earthquake swarming down there in Southern California in this specific area, right around the Palomar Observatory, Palomar Mountain area. That's where we've seen that earthquake strike today. Rather odd, I would say. It's off of any major plate boundaries, any major fault systems. There is a couple different faults that run through here, different segments of the Elsinore fault. This 4.2 occurred about 14 kilometers deep. What's going on out there? What kind of scientific studies are being performed? I would like to know. Please clue me in. It was felt roughly south of the border here, south of San Diego, up to Los Angeles. So somewhat of a, well, a moderate earthquake, right? California does get earthquakes all the time, but it's been a while since we've seen a 4-pointer out here into the area of Southern California. So kind of keep an eye on things. I have issued an earthquake watch just because potentially this may be natural earthquake activity. I don't know. I just kind of find it rather odd. I don't know what kind of studies are being performed down there. But obviously, if there is studies being performed, they're not being put out to the public. The last earthquake here, a 0.5, little aftershock. We haven't really seen too many aftershocks out here. Normally, a 4.5 would trigger a swarm of aftershocks anywhere out here along the West Coast. That's just the way the plate dynamics are set up out here. So I find this a little odd that we're not seeing any major aftershock activity from that 4.5. San Jacinto fault zone, that's the fault system to the east here, secondary to the, well, it's the This is the main plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault. A lot of swarming going up and down the San Jacinto Fault zone today. But aside from that, doesn't look like there was too much earthquake activity as far as 2.5 and above goes. There is a 2.8, it looks like, coming in within the last hour up here, just off of the Calaveras Fault zone, the southern segment, about the area where it comes in contact with the plate boundary, 9.3 kilometers deep. So kind of watching this. Did issue an earthquake watch due to the elevated earthquake activity out here across the portion of California. Also notice this area kind of extending off the Southern California coastline. There is a fault system here. You can kind of see it stretching from about the southern end here of the San Andreas Fault near Rancho Cucamonga, extending all the way out here. And I don't know if these fault systems, they're obviously named differently. There's a Sierra Madre fault zone, okay, blah, blah, blah. That does extend further west to the Raymond Fault. And then it looks like it extends to a different name over here further west. Which one is that here? Let's see. What do we got? Santa Monica Fault. That extends further west. But if you look at it, maybe potentially this could be just one big fault system out here. If that's the case, look out. That could spell some major trouble here for this area of Southern California. But if you look here in the map, you see this kind of a little line of earthquake activity extending off here to the west of Los Angeles area. We did see some 2s and 1s, some variable earthquakes there down to down to about 11 kilometers or so up to the surface level. So a little bit of activity kicking up here. But if you follow that fault system there, it kind of looks like they're one and the same, but just different names. Similar to what you see down here, right? You got the San Andreas Fault. All of a sudden, it's named the Brawley Seismic Zone. It's just, okay. And then you go down further south, all of a sudden, it's the Imperial Fault. All right. But, draw the line from point A to point B, and you will see the truth, so to speak. But for some reason, geologists like to rename these, these areas, certain segments, right? Just like all these other towns. There's thousands of towns out here named differently. Not one the same. All right. Enough of that ranting. Up along, of course, we've seen that 2.8 up here. A little bit of smaller earthquake activity along the creeping segment there of the San Andreas Fault. The rest of California, what's going on out here in California? Aside from Clear Lake Volcanic Field north, we got a little bit of movement here into the southern end of the Cascadia Subduction Zone at 2.5, 20 kilometers deep here. And earlier this morning at 1.8 within that same area. So this tells me, I think we covered this last night. I got so many windows popping up here, but you know what? It's all good because it doesn't really bug me. I can work with it. Tremor map tonight. 0 epicenters. I kind of find that hard to believe, folks. Yesterday we had a little bit of tremor activity here into the Oregon area, and I believe that's contributing to the earthquake activity we're seeing here. It's in this day and age of information, what is there to believe? Is this the truth that's being put out to us? I don't have any access to official tremor monitoring data. This is just what the USGS, the PNSN network that monitors the tremor activity gives us. So I don't know where the raw data is. If I had it, I would show it. But for the most part, we kind of have to take their word for it, right? But they've been wrong. I can't say they've been wrong, but they've hidden information before in the past and claim that there's some, network errors, computer issues and whatnot going on. So I don't know. I find it hard to believe that there's no tremor activity today with the ongoing movement out here across the southern end of the Cascadia and also the Blanco fracture zone, seeing a 3.4 earlier this afternoon. So just a little weird. A little weird. Oh, definitely a little weird. So I don't know. Anybody got that information out there? I'll probably message someone tomorrow and see if, or I'll have to wait until Monday, see if they can provide me with a link to the raw data, because tremor is definitely not like earthquake activity. It's not a sudden release of energy where you can see a jolt on a seismograph. All right, Cascadia, well, Cascade Mountains, I should say. Little earthquake here, little earthquake there, a little earthquake everywhere, it seems like, here along the Cascades. To some very small microquakes across some specific volcanoes up there today, it looks like. In the state of Washington, not a whole lot going on throughout the Intermountain West area. Looking at the Yellowstone area of Wyoming, a couple earthquakes, 6 earthquakes. Well, let me double check. Let's double check that. That's the thing about having freedom of information out here, and freedom of the well, let's see what's going on here. We've got another issue. It seems like that's been an ongoing deal here with the Yellowstone map. There we go. Thank you. All right. Well, they report 4 earthquakes out there. 4 earthquakes. What do we got? You guys want to count those out here? How many earthquakes do you see listed up here on this graph? Quite a bit more than 4, right? 4 would be probably within this first line or so. If you want to count every single one of those spikes, that's probably 4. Add on who knows how many more. Quite a bit. Nothing major going on here about across Yellowstone, but I do see a signature of probably a 2-pointer at least. Let me see what they reported here. Well, their last earthquake was reported a 1.1 way earlier this afternoon. That's the USGS. But I'm talking about this red spike here that showed up across quite a bit of seismograph stations, and that's going to be probably very close to a 2-pointer, if not above. But it's the weekend. USGS does not give any reports on any of these smaller microquakes. You could have 300 microquakes out here in a couple hours at Yellowstone, and they will not report on it. They only, for whatever reason, they only report 2.5 and above. I find that not necessarily acceptable when it comes to a super volcano out here such as Yellowstone. So I don't know how to go about changing that. Obviously, it's up to the supreme leader there at the USGS that monitors the volcano activity. But I think it's necessary to report the obvious earthquake activity that's occurring below the 2.5 threshold. That's my 2 cents. If I can figure out a way to change it, I will. The rest of the country looks fairly quiet. A little bit of activity across the New Madrid seismic zone in 1.7 near Still, Missouri. A lot of severe weather out there today in this area of the country. Goodness. So, man. All right. Puerto Rico area, a couple smaller quakes, 2s and 3s out here today. Doesn't look like too much activity ramping up. The Middle America Trench quiet, according to the USGS, but they're a little picky on reporting data out there. But the EMSC model here, the other agency that monitors earthquake data, shows roughly about the same. Not a whole lot of activity there. A little bit of earthquake movement down around Costa Rica, but aside from that, fairly quiet in the Middle America Trench. A couple smaller quakes there around the Chile area. Whoa, who's reporting a 4.8? So EMSC is actually reporting that earthquake in the Southern California area is a 4.8. I doubt that, because a 4.8 is going to be way stronger, folks. And that earthquake supposedly around here that the USGS is reporting as a 4.2, 4.8 would be felt over a huge area. I'm talking probably up around Lancaster, Palmdale, and that was not the case. So I am more in agreement with the 4.2 measurement compared to what the EMSC is reporting. And that's a little bit overblown there, EMSC, to report that as a 4.8. So just notice that 4.8 up there on the globe. We're getting a little bit of pancake activity up around the Alaska area. Talking about stacking of earthquakes. Let's go ahead and check out the Alaska area way up north here. Getting some deeper movement and some shallower earthquakes across the Cook Inlet area and Denali region. Also a little bit of swarming activity up here. Looks like earlier this morning, it looks like a couple 3s and some 2s out here. Hughes area, it looks like, of Alaska. Just south here of the Brooks Range. Not seeing any major earthquake activity across the Aleutian Trench for now. And EMSC model here shows roughly about the same thing. Northwestern corner of the Pacific Plate in agreement. Relatively calm conditions. Some older earthquake movement here from this morning. It looks like some 4s and even some from last night with that 5.4 down here into the Izu Trench. What do we got further south here into the Papua New Guinea area? Getting looks like a little bit of uptick here. Some deeper movement here around Papua New Guinea. Notice the rings here raised off the globe. That's going to be a well, I don't know if it's going to be that earthquake. It kind of looks like it's missing. But there's a couple 4s out here and some deeper movement quakes here is noted on the globe. Also the Indonesia area westward here across the Java Trench showing some smaller quake activity as well. Down here into the Indian Ocean, the Southeast Indian Ridge, seeing a little bit of uptick, 4.8 and a 5.6. Those are some fracture zones out there, divergent boundaries indicating some pressure below this area, right? If you really think about it, these are not earthquake, or these are not plates squeezing together or rubbing up against each other, but spreading apart from each other. So obviously there's some pressure building up south of Australia underneath this area. Some movement up into China as well. Not a whole lot going on throughout the Middle East according to the EMSC model, and a look at the USGS model. But according to the EMSC model, a couple 2s and 3s out here over the last couple hours in the Turkey area. That's obviously expected. Aside from that, the Atlantic Ocean has been awfully quiet up here. Down there as well. Nothing going on in the South Sandwich Trench for now. Goodness. So a lot of unusual, well, I can't really say unusual, but a lot of broader scale earthquake activity happening in certain areas. So we'll continue to watch that and see how it evolves, so to speak, here over the next couple days. Let's see here. So Yellowstone National Park, let me double check this, make sure we got, we can check this map here. Not really seeing any migration of earthquake swarms out here, just mainly around the Yellowstone Lake area. And by the way, I do have a seismograph station up there on the live stream, and there's an earthquake as we speak. Very small microquake earthquake. Probably a 0.1 or so shown up there at Lake Yellowstone in Wyoming. So earthquake swarm continuing. Let's go ahead and check out the space weather activity here across the area. Looks like we got, well, a little sea flare popping up here from, well, hard to tell right now with a blackout of data. I'm guessing it was from the sunspot on the southwestern limb of the sun. Doesn't look like any other sunspots here harbor any potential for even sea flare activity. Of course, we are into that blackout period right now where the Earth is interfering with the data. Looking at the current magnetic structure here of all these sunspots, Earth-facing that is. Well, there's, as you guys can see, there's colors up here on the board, but there's not a lot of intermingling, so to speak, of all these colors, and it's fairly stable. So I don't see any possibility across the board here for any sea flares at all across this region. So that sea flare activity had to have been taking place here across this area to the southwestern limb of the sun. So overall threat, including that southwestern portion of the sun, 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 15, X flare 5%, a little bit overblown according to these datas here. This data. Aurora forecast. Well, you could probably count that out tonight. Not a whole lot of possibility at all. Looks like 0% probability for auroras at the higher latitudes. Not really expecting anything over the next couple days. The 3-day shows hardly anything. At least anything to write home about, that's for sure. All right, let's see. What do we got here, folks? While we're on weather, goodness, that's just a scary picture here today. Current day 1 outlook still shows some high probabilities here into looks like areas of Arkansas, Arkansas area. See what we got. Arkansas, portions of Tennessee, Mississippi, still within that high category, and that extends over overnight. But tomorrow is a little bit, well, kind of looks like a little bit different story as that system progresses and scoots over and out of the way. Well, this is current day 1, right? Goodness, let's see here. Current day 2 is tomorrow, day 3. Day 3, what's going on up here? That includes me. Looks like a little bit of elevated activity here across the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Let me check this here real quick, see what we got going on. Across the numerical model here, there's that system bringing in tornadoes there across the Midwest. Unfortunately, looks as though we have a storm system here along the West Coast, bringing in some moisture, but primarily looks like it's some colder air. Not seeing a whole lot of moisture associated with the with this storm system coming in here. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going on here. Not a whole lot of potential for any severe weather, but it looks like maybe some thunderstorm activity. But notice the cold air, notice the low elevation snow up here into Oregon. But aside from that, GFS model shows it a little, well, maybe around the 15th of April. Getting some rainfall up here in Northern California. It's hard to say, folks, when it's this far out. The weather models are very, well, not really precise, right? It's almost 2 weeks out. So hard to say if this is going to be a 100-degree day or maybe we're going to have a lot of rain and colder temperatures. So it's hard to judge that far out into the future. All right. Hazard notification system here across the area. I'm not for sure what's going on. Seems like a little slowdown going on with USGS. Not so. There we go. Took the hazard notification system. Wow. No major changes there across the Alaskan Volcano Observatory. The HVO only showing daily updates there for Kilauea over the past week or so. Doesn't look like there's been any major changes. No updates there on Yellowstone National Park as far as the swarm goes. They put out a monthly update unless there's some, changes going on. So apparently they don't think earthquake swarm is worthy of an update. Well, they do happen quite often, right? The Cascade Range, as you can see, we don't have any active volcanoes there across the Cascades. And for the most part, everything looks good across the northern Mariana Islands as well, far as any unusual activity goes. All right, let's see what else is there, folks. What else do we have? Nothing going on across the buoys. Nothing that I can see. So everything looks fairly clear for now. I think that's gonna be it. Don't forget. Well, we didn't really check out New Zealand, right? I don't like leaving New Zealand out. We didn't really cover too much activity down here. Kind of skipped over them. I do want to go in here and check with the GeoNet servers here real quick and see what's going on. The New Zealand Quakes Online site kind of reminded me of that, so we definitely got to check this here real quick and see what's going on. Looks like a 3.1, couple 1, some smaller quakes, but you know, we can go up and down the list. But if we check the earthquake drums here, this will give us a better indicator of what's going on. If we see this lighten up like crazy, we know there's some type of earthquake swarm going on, some type of earthquake activity kicking up there across New Zealand. But as you can see, smooth sailing, it looks like. I'm sure a beautiful day out there in New Zealand. Timothy, one of our moderators and members, live out there, and he has a pretty cool site that I would suggest folks check out if you are out there in New Zealand. It is a site called New Zealand Quakes. New Zealand Quakes Online got a huge informational page here, not only on New Zealand, which is nicely laid out, by the way, but also other informational links up here regards to solar weather and volcanic drums, and many other links to the appropriate data centers out there and the contact information. So check it out, guys. It's the New Zealand Quakes Online site, and that it's pretty nicely set up. Well done there, Timothy. With this site, I must say. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. Hope everyone has a great night. What do we got going on there on the earthquake map? A little earthquake there in Chile, but that's about it, looks like. All right, guys, have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. We'll catch you guys back out here tomorrow sometime. Take care.